Hey, welcome back everybody. Showing up at the start on camera because the algorithm requires me to do that now, among many other things. Anyways, it's time for the monthly update on oil demand levels. So heading right down the list in roughly descending order, the US remains the world's largest oil consumer, continuing to wobble around a 20 million barrel per day plateau that we've been at for 20 plus years now. China had started to level out around 17 to 18. Looks like that's where they were going to plateau. And once all the Iran war started, at least the first round of it, and they tried their best to reduce their consumption, to reduce their imports. They did pull themselves down as low as under 14, but in June last month they came back up to 16.3 when it looks like everything was going to go back to normal. However, now that the war restarted, they're going to probably curtail themselves back down again. India, before the war began, had just exceeded 6 million barrels per day for the first time in their history. And during their attempts to draw down their consumption, they got as low as 5.4, and they had gotten back up a little bit, up to 5.54, just before the war restarted a week ago, or now about 2 weeks ago. Japan was once up at 6 million barrels per day decades ago, but a combination of factors like massive increase in fuel efficiency and their population aging have seen them decline down to averaging only around 3.5. During the Iran war, the most intense months when everything was cut off, they dropped down to 2.65. And as of a month and a half ago, they were only back up to 2.73. Russia, once up at 5 million barrels per day during the Soviet times, not the whole Soviet Union, that was just Russia within the Soviet Union, dropped down to 2 in the 90s after the collapse, got back up close to 4 before COVID, got back up close to 4 again before invading Ukraine. And in the economic turmoil since then, they were staying more down closer to 3, and they have begun obfuscating most of their oil and other energy and economic data over the last year and a half. So it's really difficult to get actual legit numbers anymore. So we only really have a range. And currently, Russia's oil consumption, as of most recently, the last month or so, has been decently down further in a range between only 2.5 and 3 million barrels per day, with that extra suppression now coming from all the refineries that have been destroyed by Ukrainian drone and missile strikes. So there is quite a lack of availability of fuel in Russia to be consumed in the first place. South Korea basically plateaued off in present day around 2.8. And given their demographic pyramid, they're about to follow Japan's example. During the Iran war, they got down as low as 2.2 or 2.21. And as of a month and a half ago, when the most recent data is from, they were actually only a few tens of thousands higher than that, so they were still down there. Saudi Arabia fluctuating between 2 and 3 usually throughout the year, highest in summer because their electricity demand goes way up, and they still generate a lot of power from oil-fired power plants. And as we head into summer, they have only gotten up to 2.67 because a lot of stuff does still remain shut down. Brazil has seen one of its highest oil demand levels for quite some time. They were up around and sometimes a bit over 3 back in the early 2010s before their economy kind of stagnated and then fell apart. Last time they were at 2.8. This time they are actually even higher at 2.9 million barrels per day of oil demand. Canada in present day is usually around 2.5. This time they came in at 2.41. Indonesia in present day has grown up close to 2.5. They're usually now averaging 2.4. During the Iran war disruptions, they dropped in demand down to 2.08. And as of a month and a half ago, they were back up to 2.23. Germany in present day has come down to about 2 million from the 3 million they once averaged in the past a few decades ago. And they went down a few 100,000 under 2 during the Iran war supply disruptions. This time they came in at 1.96. Mexico usually averages around 2 million barrels per day, and they did release their data. I just actually forgot to write it down now that I'm sitting here looking at the sheet, reading it. But they only came in 10,000 barrels per day different than they did last month. So they are still roughly around the 1.9 or 2 million barrel per day area. It did take them quite a while to recover post-COVID, after the COVID-induced demand collapse, they did have a much slower recovery demand-wise than a lot of other countries, but they are back up to around 2 million barrels per day on average now. France usually averages 1.6 in present day, and their numbers from the lowest points during the Iran war supply disruptions and attempts to lower demand by many nations, they came in at 1.34. The UK is down to 1.5 in present day, and most recently, a month and a half ago, their data says 1.39. Turkey is one of the ones with more delayed data, with the most recent data being from a few months ago, and they're averaging 1.3 in present day and climbing. And their data is from their lowest points during the Iran war when they were trying to conserve like everybody else. And they got down by a couple 100,000 down to 1.08. Italy also went down to 1.08. They're normally at 1.3. Spain is usually also at 1.3. This time they came in pretty close at 1.26. Thailand is still down. They are normally at 1.2 or 1.3 in the present day, and they've only come back up halfway. They got down to 1 during the Iran war. Now they're back up to 1.1. The UAE in present day is usually around 1.2 million barrels per day of domestic consumption. They dropped as low as between 500 and 600 during the height of the Iran war. Now they were just back up to about 700,000. However, now that it's restarted, they're about to probably go back down again. Australia in present day is usually around 1.1. This time they came in at 1.04. Netherlands is usually now down around 900,000, and they're still down close to their Iran war suppressed levels at 777,000. Similarly to Taiwan, who is now down to usually around 900,000, and this time is still down at Iran war levels of 654,000 barrels per day. Unable to get data this time from Egypt, Iraq, and Malaysia. So on to Poland, whose data is still from the demand suppressed period of the primary Iran war, or the first phase, where they dropped from their usual 800 down to 701. Belgium is usually around 600 in present day. They've declined over time from 700 down to 600. Most recently, they came in a bit under at 572. Nigeria did not update this time, but in present day, they're up to usually around 700,000. And their most recent data was from in the middle of the Iran war, where they dropped down to 481. Could not get the most recent data from Vietnam, Philippines, and Colombia this time. So on to Algeria, who in present day is up to around 500,000. This time they came in at 460. Chile has plateaued out at about 400,000, and they came in at 373. Sweden has decreased over time from 400 down to averaging 300,000, and they came in at 287. Greece averages around 300,000. They came in at 293. Romania did not update, but Portugal, who usually averages the same amount as Romania, around 250, came in averaging 217. And then the club of countries who average roughly around 200,000, starting with Austria, who came in at 217, Czech Republic, who came in at 224, Hungary, who came in down at 160, Switzerland, who came in down at 160 as well, Finland, who was all the way down to 155, and Norway, who was actually elevated up at 249. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. And the YouTube super whatever button. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.